Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to this. I will admit to say I'm sorry there aren't more people here because the topics we're going to talk about have been talked about in virtually every session I've been in. People have talked about community engagement. And the three women sitting to my left are amazing. They are amazing, not only pioneers, but they are so involved in their communities and so have made a difference. And so it's an important one, so I hope people are going to watch this on the webinar when Amy broadcasts these. So I'm going to do the introductions, and then I have some questions, and then we want to leave some time for Q&A. First of all, right here to my left is Debbie Sloan Smith. She is the daughter of Ray Sloan. Ray Sloan Cox, who just got a Pioneer Award, and she is from Ocean Isle, North Carolina. What's interesting about Debbie to me when I was interviewing these three women before the panel is that they all come from very different areas and very different experiences. So Debbie manages about 375 vacation rentals on Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina. And what's interesting about her community, it's only about 650 people who live there year-round. There are 4,000 vacation rentals. So as you said in an earlier one, a lot of the people who vote are not there voting because they have to vote in their primary space. And about 25,000 people come to Ocean Isle every week. And Debbie has been she is the table in her community is the way I look at it when I think about a seat at the table, because she's been on their governing board of Ocean Isle for 30 years and mayor for the last 18. Next to her is Amy Gaster, and Amy and I go way back because my sister and I work our company, and she and her sister work her company, Tybee Island Vacation Rentals. They have about 300 properties that they manage. They have on Tybee Island, which is near Savannah in Georgia, they have about 3,000 full-time residents, and then they have about 10,000 people crossing the causeway each day during peak season. And of those on the island, they have about 1,500 vacation rentals, 500 hotel rooms. So vacation rentals are definitely the dominant economic force on Tybee Island. And what I say about Amy is that she has a seat at many tables. And then finally, we get to Michelle Aquavella, who's from Seattle. And the way I think about Michelle is that she built the table that she needed because she is the oldest vacation rental company in Seattle. She owns the oldest vacation rental company in Seattle. And in Seattle, it's a much different environment that I'm from, that the two of us are from, because we're from traditional resort destinations, and she's in an urban area managing vacation rentals. And she just told me there's about 4,000 vacation rentals there, but we're talking about an urban area of about 725,000 people in the Seattle proper, and then about 4 million people in Seattle surrounding area, the metropolitan area. So those are our three people: a seat at the table, built the table, and many tables. And so I want to start with Debbie. And would you please tell me about your seat at the table and how you decided to become first a governing board member, and then I think it's called the governing board there, and then mayor. It should be on.
Should be on. I reckon I was young and idealistic and thought I could make a difference, and so I got quite involved with the town in my early 30s. We have a lot of retirees in our community. Sometimes they think different. They've been there and done that, and they don't want anybody else there. I call them our bridge tenders. You know, I'm here now, take the bridge out, nobody else needs to come. I'm sure you know that, Julia. And so we were still a growing and thriving community, and I wanted to be part of it. So I ran against the advice of some of the leaders at that time, but I won, and I've been doing it ever since. So I've been voted off before and voted back on 2 years later, because I'd still go to the meetings and something would come up and they didn't know how it got to be that way. So I knew. I'd been there. I'd been involved, so I knew. And I hadn't been mayor 18 years. I've only been mayor 16 years.
We're going on 18. Going on 18.
I have an election next November.
I love that.
It's exciting to be involved. We've built a good staff. Staff is key. I hope I've contributed heavily to teaching them the ins and outs of hospitality, because that's the industry we have on our island. That's the only industry we have. Mostly vacation rentals, a few small hotels. And, you know, they're our bread and butter. For 650 people, we have a 13-man police department. We have a fire department staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we service a larger community than our actual city limits. So it feels bigger. And a lot of people have an Ocean Isle address when they're actually not in the city. So I get asked to do a lot of things outside of my jurisdiction. So.
Okay, thank you. And Amy, tell us about the many seats at the many tables that you sit at.
Right, well, I sit across, it sounds like Tybie's, very similar. It's a very small island, and we do have our gatekeepers as well. And so I guess when my sister and I started our business 19 years ago, I decided that I wanted to have a seat at the table because I have a vacation rental business and I'm paying this thing called hotel tax. And I want to know, well, what are they going to spend my money on? So I just showed up to the meeting and grabbed a seat at that table. 17, 18, 19 years later, I've been serving on tourism board, and that seat at that table has led me to so many other tables. So at what first started as, how are we going to spend this money? How is the city spending this money? How is the Tourism Council marketing our destination? And at that point, they weren't even marketing vacation rentals. We were not a category. So that seat at the table was to get vacation rentals established as a category for our destination, which then led into festival event tables, which then led into city ordinances and how they're picking up our trash and vacation rental trash and vacation rental noise and vacation rental parking. And I said, wait a minute, this is everybody. So it ends up at multiple tables. Currently, I'm on the Master Plan Implementation Committee, the Short-Term Vacation Rental Committee, and oftentimes people will, you know, what do you think, you're the mayor? I'm like, no, I don't want to be the mayor. I actually like being on this side of the table to be able to be the influencer, but to talk to our mayor and to talk to our city officials. It's really good to be familiar in all those places.
Great, thank you. Michelle, tell us about building your table.
Yeah, okay. So I was a residential real estate agent, and my first daughter was born, and boy, that kid could sleep. This was in 2001, and she slept 17 hours a day, went to bed at 7 p.m. Like, I was bored out of my mind, and all the other moms were jealous. But this led us to, when we traveled, we could no longer stay in a hotel room because this kid went to bed at 7 p.m. and all hell would break loose if she wasn't in bed by 7 p.m. So it led me, even when we went to urban places, to really look at what alternatives were to hotels, and that's how I came into the vacation rental space. I had a mother-in-law apartment in my house in Seattle on Finney Ridge at the time, and I thought, I'll bet I could do that with the basement apartment. And then the grandparents can come visit because we have extra space then, because homes in Seattle are traditionally very small. And we did it. It was incredibly successful. It paid the mortgage on the entire house. My husband at the time then was supportive when I said I want to buy a condo downtown and do the same thing. So we did that, and at the time I then wrote a business plan to manage other people's properties. That was in 2003. Fast forward to 2007, we're now managing about 37 to 40 properties. The city of Seattle issues me a notice to cease and desist because what I was doing, they were considering a commercial enterprise, and that was not allowed in a residential zone. Well, before I had started my business, I went down to City Hall. I sat with the land use officer there, and we looked through the code, and nowhere did it say that something magical happened at 30 Nights that made it residential versus commercial. So 2 years of my life, $90,000 out of my pocket, becoming the advocate I never intended to be for my industry, to save this business that was essentially another child. So there was no choice but to save it. I got kind of thrust into, okay, now this is your new role and you have to figure out how to do it. So since then, I've been a strong advocate for vacation rentals in Seattle, but also in the Pacific Northwest. I co-founded the Northwest Vacation Rental Professionals and served on their board for the last 8 years, recently just stepped off. And then also we got regulations came up in 2016 at the City of Seattle, and so quickly formed the Seattle Short-Term Rental Alliance. And now, for better or worse, I'm looked to when anything comes up. Now Washington State bill has come up, and they're all looking at me like I'm going to be doing something, and so I am.
That's good. That's terrific. So let me start with you, Michelle, and I
Sure.
want to ask you the question because it ties into what you did with the Alliance. What's the most impactful thing you've done with your seat at the table?
Yeah. This may not be for everyone. It worked really well in the City of Seattle. We had competing messages with Airbnb, VRBO.com, and then the Seattle Short-Term Rental Alliance. And all three of us were coming at it from different angles and asking City Council to do something else. Well, I will tell you that those companies can out-resource the hell out of you. They have money, they have space, they have lobbyists, they have power. So what we ultimately did is, and we had to strong arm Airbnb because they originally wrote the regulation for the City of Seattle, and of course it was primary only. No secondary homes were going to be allowed to be used as short-term rentals. So through my seat on the board of the NWVRP, we had Airbnb wanted to come to our conference, and we said, hell no, you cannot come to our conference. You are working against us, not just in Seattle, but all over the country. You know, mind you, this is almost 3 years ago now, so they've really done a 180. And that got their attention when we said, you can't come to our conference. And this was to, what's Andrew's last name? Andrew Baker. And Andrew was an advocate for us within Airbnb, got them to come to the table and sit down with us. Suddenly, they changed their tune. We got VRBO, or Expedia, at that point they had become Expedia, got the three of us in a room, so the Seattle Short-Term Rental Alliance, VRBO.com, and Airbnb, sat down and we hammered out what can we agree on? What talking points can we agree on that we want to see in this regulation? And with the three of us, the three organizations, saying the same thing to City Council, we got almost exactly what we wanted. So we got a regulation that we think is very fair. None of our owners were adversely affected, and it was incredibly impactful to get everyone on the same message.
That's a really interesting thing because a lot of the time we keep fighting each other in a lot of communities, and so that was a really important takeaway that you got everybody in the same room. Share with Amy. And Amy, tell us what's the most impactful thing that you think you've done at your many tables.
Well, when it comes to short-term rental advocacy, it was actually learning from Claire's model. In her community, we started our own local association called TIARA, the Tybee Island Association of Rental Agents. And so really rallying the troops together, and it's not always the reality. We don't really meet, but we are aligned. We have a mailing list. Anytime we need to get together, we get together. In the nearly 2 decades of different ordinances, including finally our short-term vacation rental ordinance that was passed, having a seat at that table, sitting there with several of our councilmen, me and councilmen working on this ordinance with city staff together, knowing that my colleagues actually trust that I'm acting in their best interest as well and on the interest of their owners, getting those emails out because I'm not just one seat at the table. What we represent as a business owner, as a person in the Tourism Council, I'm representing 300 of my property owners. I'm representing hundreds of employees. I'm representing their families. So it's not just one seat. I actually have a lot of, it's not just me, and I'm also a member of the community, which sometimes I think that they forget when they just see that you're a business owner and that you just have your own interests. And it's like, no, I do live here. My family's from here. My mom was from here. My grandma lived here. And I do care very much about this, and we want to be good neighbors. So
What did
that
you
was
tell me
important.
the other day? You said, I promote 3 things.
Yes. So first, what I started out is is I first promote the destination as Tybee Island, so a big awareness campaign of if people are going to, most of y'all, if you have your vacationers are in the Atlanta market, well, I want them to go to Tybee, just like, we're all competing for that. So promote the destination first. Second is the category of vacation rentals and the public awareness of getting, we're way past awareness. People know that vacation rentals are on Tybee Island. And then third would be my particular company and the experience of staying with our company and that difference. So in that order, really.
I like that. I think that's a great way to think about it. When I was talking with you, you said something really interesting. We were talking about the impact that your community work had on your business. And you told me, and I repeated this to Amy, and I were smiling about this. You said, I see my job as two things. I promote tourism and I protect it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I do. Of course, that's my livelihood. We do vacation rentals, but we also have a small oceanfront inn that we own ourselves. It's where I grew up, staying in one wing of a motel. And that was the picture you saw at the Wards of a little flat-top building. That's where I grew up as a kid. But it is important to protect it. I mean, that is our livelihood. There's a lot of families and a lot of people that make, they're living, renting the houses, managing houses, cleaning houses, plumbers, electrician, heat and air, all those services that we require to maintain these properties. And these are some of maybe, other than their permanent residents, the people that own property on Ocean Isle, I would dare guess for a large portion of them, this is their largest investment in any one thing, other than maybe their permanent residence. So it is important to them. It's an income. It helps them, a lot of them, it helps them be able to afford to have that house. We've got generations that have owned the same house. Grandparents to parents to the kids that are now my age, and their kids are coming along. So it is kind of a tradition. We get lots of repeat renters, as I'm sure the people that fall in love with our communities, everybody else does too. But I've strived real hard as I've been involved with this council. We actually, after Hurricane Hugo came through, we lost about half of our dune systems on the ocean front. We realized that we had to do something to protect it, and it was an expensive project. We actually requested that the legislature give us the authority to collect an occupancy tax. I had 3 vacation rental managers on our town council when we requested that. We all knew we had to protect what people were coming to see. So we asked for it. Our county wouldn't ask for it, but the cities asked for it, and one beach town after another jumped on. So we got that passed, and that's helped us restore the beach after a hurricane and do all the things that we need to do to protect what we've got out there. So we taxed ourselves to be able to maintain the business.
I find that amazing, amazing, and that takes a lot of leadership and planning.
And planning.
That's amazing.
And our legislation said this was supposed to be spent for tourism. Well, over those developing years, a lot of it went to sewer infrastructure and water infrastructure and all those things that we needed desperately. But as we got all those built, I worked really hard to get a lot of that money spent on true tourism-related expenses. We advertise, we promote, and in addition to our TDA, promote our area so people have an awareness of us.
That's a great story. Amy, I want to go back to something you told me earlier. There's other ways to have a seat at the table, and one of the things that Amy's done in Tybee is to also promote the importance of vacation rentals and tourism on Tybee is to start a festival. I don't think it's more than one, right?
We have
It's a lot of
tons.
work.
Yes, there's always something happening on Tybee Island if y'all haven't been there. So one of the fun festivals that we started was called Pirate Fest, Tybee Pirate Fest, and that's been going on for 12 years. I am the 2009 Pirate Queen. My mom was the 2007, and it was a group that was a spinoff off of the Tourism Council, and we were looking at extending our season, everyone's dream, right? So going from that traditional 100 100 days of summer into 120, into September, into October, which works great until there's a hurricane that comes on Pirate Fest weekend. That is the worst thing ever. But it used to not be a worse thing because we wouldn't have anyone to evacuate. Now there's no room at the end. All 1,500 vacation rentals, all 500 hotel rooms, every spare bedroom that I have for certain is taken up because we have parades, we have events that before they were non-events, starting the Labor Day Beach Bash. Every year the Swinging Medallions comes. That did not happen 19 years ago when I first started our business. And I was like, oh, it's like if you build it, they will come. I'm like, all we have to do is have a fireworks show, and man, you can't even get off the island. So and on the hotel tax dollars, you cannot spend hotel tax revenues on fireworks. So I found a way in our budget so that out of our advertising revenues from the Tourism Council through the ad sales, we could actually put part of that money towards festivals and special events. So that is anything that we've done. Then we said, oh, let's do this on New Year's. New Year's, I mean, you cannot make good weather on an island, even on the coast of Georgia, in January. But then let's do the polar bear plunge the next day. And crazy people really do this. Like they jump in the water at noon. I think they have Bloody Marys first or something. But and thousands of people come out. And so creating this fun and festive environment. I'm going to go back next week. We started a Mardi Gras parade. I'm already pre-gaming Mardi Gras. The next week, St. Patrick's Day on Tybee. And so all of these events that we are creating that perception that there's always something going on, getting fellow businesses together, making sure we're sponsoring all of our nonprofits, all of these events, making sure we are getting city council to support and authorize these events and not make the event application process complicated, stressing the importance that these events have for our community. They literally keep, and especially not just for overnight, but even our bars and restaurants, it will keep servers and employees in business throughout the off season just by having Pirate Fest, just that one event.
So one of the things that comes to mind, and it probably happens in both of your communities, the beach communities, is that we have a tension between residents and tourism. And so sometimes there's some great festival happening, but the residents say, if we have another run that closed down our streets, and yet they're putting heads in beds, which creates hotel tax and sales tax, which lowers their ad valorem taxes. And so do y'all find that in your communities?
I certainly do. We have several runs that happen on our beach in the off season. And, the residents do complain. It took them 15 minutes to get off of their street because of the runners. But they knew it was happening, so they didn't plan. They knew it was happening, but they still wanted to go out at that moment when it first started. So yes, you do see that. You see a lot of conflict or perceived conflict, I have to say, between residents and visitors. We only have one way on and off of our island, so traffic does back up on check-in day. All of us check in the same day on a Saturday. If you live there, you're an idiot if you try to get on or off the beach, between 10 o'clock in the morning and again from about 9 to 10:30 in the morning, and in the afternoon from 2 to 6. You stay home, or you go to the beach because there's nobody out there. So you try to tell them to do that. And we luckily have had some road improvements in our intersection. They took out an intersection, built a roundabout, which everybody thought was just going to be the worst thing in the world. Was the best thing since sliced bread. We now have 3 coming in our
Did
road.
y'all get credit for that?
Well,
like trying to balance the needs of, visitors and the residents?
The first one we built, I caught a lot of heat from because they thought it was my idea. People thought it was my idea, but it was not my idea. It was a Department of Transportation traffic engineer that said this is the perfect place for a roundabout. Well, they built it. The next summer, there was no backup going off of the beach. We didn't have to put the policemen in the middle of the intersection to give people a chance to get on and off the beach. It worked great.
That's good. That's good. I'm going to skip over to Michelle. And Michelle, you can add something and then I'll ask you a question.
Well, I just we have different issues, of course. We have housing affordability and the homelessness issue in the city of Seattle. And we were getting blamed for that initially. It was quickly debunked, but they, kept talking about the affordable housing we were eating up, and we were like, these are multi-million-dollar homes. These are, in no one's dream is this an affordable home. And so what we did instead, and it wasn't just me, without me even really prompting any of the other vacation rental homeowners or property managers at the city council meetings, one by one, we came up there and we said, you know what, we want to help our city too, and we are not affordable housing and we're not causing this crisis, but there is an opportunity here to tax us and build the affordable housing for those people. We want to be positive contributors in our community. And we knew that's where they were headed anyways. And so the city council had us pause when they kept hearing this over and over again. And they said, we have literally never had someone come up, a group come up and say, go ahead and tax us. Because we weren't paying hotel sales tax at the time. They had no lodging tax on us. We were only paying retail sales tax.
Y'all initiated it?
We did, because we knew it was coming and it was fair, and we had the hotel lobby saying these people need to be paying lodging tax. And so, yeah, we offered to be taxed.
Did you find that it gave you leverage and at your seat at the table, it gave you leverage?
It gave us respect. It gave us an opportunity where they weren't listening, then suddenly they were listening. They're like, oh, there's money there that could be used. And we believe, although this regulation just went into effect January 1st, although there's no way for us to come into compliance yet because the city is so behind in getting the system set up, we believe it's going to give us leverage going forward, because when they see the dollars rolling in, we think there is a high likelihood they'll roll back the regulations. Right now, one owner is allowed to have one short-term rental licensed in the city. And once they start seeing those dollars, we believe they're going to loosen that up and allow people to have more, because it really can help our community by providing affordable housing.
Have you put any systems in place that are going to help educate? Amy and I were talking about that earlier, that we make sure that people know how much hotel tax we're paying. And do y'all have a system in place where you're able to track it?
We don't, because they haven't even started. Well, actually, they did start collecting that tax in October.
No word on how it's being spent, though. It's very hush-hush.
Yeah, so we don't actually know yet. And our city council is notorious for poor spending, so that's a great
I think we
thing
all
I can
have
take
that.
back.
Maybe not in her city, maybe not in her town.
I'm not sure about your state, but in North Carolina, that's all public information. So you can request that information. You can request their budget. Go to their budget workshop meetings. Ask those questions.
And so we really took up this homelessness issue as an issue that we could be positive contributors to. And so when the regulation first came out, we all have all these extra linens. We've got these towels that get one stain on it and we can't use them again, or one little tiny tear in a sheet and you have to get rid of those sheets. Well, we're able to pass those along to the homeless shelters and to the apartments that become housing for people who are newly housed. And so we had a linen drive to end homelessness, and so that's an annual event that we just started.
I want to add something here. Well, right over there. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. Michelle, you want to come here for about a month?
Come here to New Orleans? I do. I've been keeping tabs on it.
I'm sitting here listening at you, and I feel like I'm right there at the city council meeting going through this. We're going through the same stuff here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I am Janice Burrell. I'm the secretary of the Alliance for Neighborhood Prosperity.
Great.
We're part of the group that actually, here in New Orleans, we're part of the group that actually got it approved in 2016, of course, and legalized. So, of course, we're going through a lot of drama here. And actually, as this wraps up, we convene on next Tuesday with the City Planning Commission, because they're looking at possibly grandfathering some of the units, if not all, but I don't know. We'll see.
Talk to the Goldwater Institute. They'll take it on.
Goldwater Institute in Arizona, and they will help with legal fees,
They
writing
will
legislation.
provide you the attorney to
Yeah.
fight it as a constitutional issue.
Goldwater, like Barry Goldwater.
But let's chat after this. We
Yeah,
can talk some more.
That's good.
Yeah.
That was a good question. Did you also have a question?
No, we're together with the Alliance for, and we did do the NID fund. We instituted it over 2 years ago, and you wouldn't believe all the things that we do. We offer $2 extra every single night. We offer extra $5. We pay all the taxes, and we've shown them that we've created an extra surplus in the city of about $90 million.
Wow.
And we're only 2% of rentals in the city of New Orleans, and they want to cut us off the knees. So it's not exactly what.
Yeah, okay, I've got some resources I can share with you guys. It sounds like legal action might be in order.
Well, we didn't want to get to there, but depending on what happens, yes. We'll be on it.
I brought this up in another session, so some of you may have heard it. In the world of politics, a lot of times it's the squeaky wheel that gets greased. I encourage you to know who your council people are on a first name basis. I encourage you to interact with them because they're hearing it everywhere else. The constituents that they're hearing from that says, I don't want it in my neighborhood, are the voters that are voting for them. So they will listen intently to them as well. But the non-resident property owners that you're managing properties for have no say-so. Ask them to write their city council, to write their state legislatures, and talk about the things that are important to them. This is an income stream for them. It's private property rights, all the things that you're arguing about. Ask your homeowners to send those letters as well to every one of those commissioners or council people or who's going to make the decision. And to keep it going.
You know, that's really important. And one of the things that we did in Galveston, where I'm from, the mailing lists are everything, our email list. And we make it really easy. We call it our posse. We have a posse of our homeowners from the different companies. We have just our activists in the neighborhoods. We have all of the people who run the nonprofits we contribute to, including the homeless shelters who get our linens and the events that we support, like Amy does. Everybody comes on board to support vacation rentals. And when there's an issue that comes up, they get an email. I just put 3 simple talking points and bullet points, and then I list so they can cut and paste. Not so they have to cut and paste those 7 email addresses, but all in one long thing. So they just cut and paste the whole thing, put it in there, and they can write those emails. Because everybody's busy. Just like we're time constrained, they are too, and I'm asking them to step up for us also. And so those email lists are golden. They're golden, so don't underestimate them. I really agree with you. It's so important that they hear from everybody who you support and have coalitions with, as well as the homeowners themselves.
And when you have a good relationship with Airbnb and Expedia, they'll do it for you. They'll provide you with the email lists. Their messaging, if they send it out themselves, is going to be a little different, but they'll give you the information so that you can get your own messaging out to folks too.
Yeah.
And I encourage you all to know who's running for offices, to know what they stand for, local level, state level, even your national level. I encourage you to contribute to them. $100 to their campaign gets you on their list. And it does make a difference. I never, ever fail to, when I see one of my state legislators, to remind them how much money we're sending in state sales tax alone to Raleigh every year. Just one little tiny island, and you multiply that by 6 we've got in our county, that's a lot of money.
And you may find yourself on the other side of the fence with that politician about everything else they stand for except tourism. So I will say I was one of the first this year to contribute to somebody I never thought in my life I would contribute to. And there was a lot of dissension because I sit on a tourism development advisory committee, and we were asked, there's a lot of businesses there, attractions, restaurants, different associations, hoteliers, vacation rentals, and we were asked to contribute, and there was a lot of grumbling at that table. And but what happened is our legislative agenda is starting to come out from the state level, and we can see the influence of those checks. I'm also on their mailing list now, so I'm getting mail that I never thought I'd be getting. But I really agree with her. It's really important. We actually, after I spoke to all these women, I put together a handout that I have up here. It's just some reminders of different things you can do to be involved, get involved, and some different tips. But now now I'm going to turn to them and say, if you were going to say one of the most important things, Amy, that you do that keeps your name and your business and your industry out in front of the people who are creating laws or even sitting in rooms that you don't know what they're doing, what's the most important thing that you do to stay in touch?
Well, and actually, it is related. I am the owner of my business. My sister and I co-own the business. I'm the president. And it's taken a very long time to have our company grow to where we do have 80 year-round employees and over 120 in the summer. The most important thing I have done is investing in my staff. It's knowing that our staff, that our day-to-day operations are being taken care of, because my job is, the importance of my job is to protect them and their jobs and to protect our property owners. So I wouldn't have time for a seat at all of these tables if I were in the trenches and in the weeds of my business. And it's empowering those people within our organization to do what they do best every single day, and then vice versa, that they trust that I'm bringing them back information. You know, I got the SEMA alerts today that our one road on the island was closed to flooding, or a text message from the mayor in the middle of a hurricane evacuation that I can instantly communicate to our staff. So knowing that I am, and I don't feel like I'm free, but that I do have a certain amount of freedom that I can dedicate to protecting our business, our homeowners, and our employees is very important, and I would not be able to do that without our
Great
staff.
Michelle, you in the same position?
What's your question?
With a great staff that allows
my
you to do
gosh.
this piece of the work.
Yeah, if anyone attended me and Heidi's session yesterday, you would know that. So about 5 years ago, I hired a strategic director, and it took us about 3 years, but I have almost completely stepped out of my business. I now only do strategy and big picture thinking, and Heidi does a reality check for me when I come up with my crazy ideas. So yeah, I mean, I'm really able to do the advocacy I'm able to do only because I know that the home office, that everyone is okay, they've got it handled, and it allows me to be on boards, to go to city council meetings, to meet with city council members individually, to do the research, and you know, it takes a lot of time reading bills and keeping tabs on what's going on.
So I would be remiss if I didn't mention something I learned from you when we spoke, Michelle, because it was something, Amy and I talk a lot about this. I'll be calling you more. And we talk a lot about advocacy for the vacation rental industry. But Michelle said something that really struck me that didn't occur to us, because we're now dealing with it on the state level again. And it's also just reared its head. They're taking another look at our ordinance on Galveston Island. And Michelle said, you need to start writing your own legislation. Don't wait for Airbnb to deliver it to a legislator and we're reacting to it, because that's exactly what we've been doing. I wish I had spoken to Michelle 4 months ago. We would have been ready for the legislative session, but she's saying write our own.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I would say that for many years now at different conferences I will hear, you know, if you don't have regulations, they're coming. Prepare. Well, the prepare is go do it. Go create your regulations. Don't wait for them to happen to you. American Hotel and Lodging Association, Airbnb, those are the people who are going to write your regulations, and they're not going to be good for your company. So I say do not try to fly under the radar anymore. The regulations are coming, and get ahead of them and get what you want written and put into place.
Yeah, that's what's going to cost a lot of money, I think, also. So one last thing, because we're almost out of time. Any questions before we do our wrap-up? Yes.
So you guys are all pretty hyper-local, or, you know, just in your markets. Is there any of these nice big companies that help with any of this stuff locally? Like,
You mean
they
the
get involved?
So in our case, did we tap Vacasa? Did Vacasa give us anything?
They gave us some money.
Yeah, I think
They gave
that
the short-term rental, not us. They gave Seattle
Short-Term
Short-Term
Rental
Rental
Alliance.
Alliance to help pay for the legal fees, but they were not very involved beyond that.
yeah, and that's, you know, and that's fine. If we've got the boots on the ground and we can be the voice and they can provide the money, then that's awesome. One of the when the city of Seattle came around and said they wanted to do regulations, I was still recouping my losses from $90,000 of attorney's fees from 2007 to 2009. And my stance was, I will take this issue on, and I know how to do it, and I'm confident I can do it, but I need the money, and I'm not having this come out of my pocket again so that everyone else can benefit.
So don't be shy, ask.
And sometimes you can also get support from other organizations. So like in Savannah, we have the Visit Tybee and Visit Savannah are the destination marketing organizations, but it all falls under the Savannah Area Chamber of Commerce. So going to those business functions, they also have government affairs committees and they do have political agendas every year. So making sure that you know your chamber influencers. In Savannah, they have a side group that is more of the political action. It's called the Tourism Leadership Council, and where they get more involved with legislative issues and employment matters. So it's not just in the vacation rental industry, although the VRMA does have a government affairs resources there. But there are ancillary organizations that are there to support businesses, employment, and tourism.
And that's a really good point she's making, but please don't underestimate the importance of being involved in other areas of your community. So when you walk in and knock on that door, you're just not coming in out of the blue. They already know Amy when Amy's asking for something. You already know yourself, and Michelle, knows people.
Claire, I just wanted to, in case it wasn't completely clear, because I don't think I said it directly, Airbnb and Expedia wrote us large checks. Large checks. They have a lot of resources, and if you say, we want to fight this, but we need the money to do so, they will write you checks to do so.
Okay.
And that beyond that, they're trying to build a good relationship so they can bend my ear to try to maybe get something they want, but they had no directive to me about how to spend that money and what messaging they wanted me to push.
Good. Any other questions? Final words from you?
Well, I know I'm from North Carolina, so many of us on the East Coast, and I assume this is true in a lot of places around the country, we have real estate sales too. We have a general real estate office. Board of Realtors will support you and support your industry if you've got a lot of members in there. I've been real involved in some coastal organizations where we're all doing the same thing with beach renourishment or laws that are restrictive or punitive. Our Coastal Resources Council, I've been on that advisory board, which is local government advising them for a lot of years. We have a beach inlet and waterway association that fights regulations and coastal regulations. So it's important that all of these people know your face, and that I can go to Julia Wax and say, what are y'all doing up here? How's this affecting you? Or, I have the fishing center down the street saying they're killing us with these fishing regulations, and if you know who to call, you can get something done a lot quicker.
And be ready to support the people who are supporting
Exactly. You have to give
okay?
that support if you are expecting to get it when you need it. So.
Right. And on this list, and we'll pass them out at the end, there's lots of ideas of how you can get involved, because it's not just your rental alliance. It could be your tourism board, your chamber of commerce. It could be your Rotary Club. It could be a coastal zone management board. It could be a zoning board. There's lots of ways. It could be your wine tasting club, your book club. It's you in the community meeting people who get to know you and what you do. Amy, any last words? How do you find the time, Amy? You already told us you have a great staff.
I make the time, and I have a great staff. And to me, I just tell myself that, yes, we all have a million things we could be doing and that we feel like we should be doing. I do make the time, and I say, this is my job. This is my job. I'm going to make the time to do this. I am going to get dressed up and go to the Tybee prom and be crowned prom queen. And I'm going to crown the next person. Literally, these are the things, because you are sitting side by side. It is my city council woman who hosts that prom, and it goes to the Humane Society, and that they can count that I am going to, by 20 minutes, show up and help them MC that show, and everybody goes. So I think it's very similar. I think ours are more similar. We do live in a small island, and it's a drinking village with a fishing problem. But it's very, right, y'all relate, I know. It is very different in big city, even right across the bridge going into Savannah. It is very different in metropolitan areas of being able to, it takes a lot more time to do that work, and that's me just crossing one bridge, and then you got to cross that highway into Atlanta. That is a lot more time, and I have to confess that that's something that is a goal of mine is to work on, is I really need to find more time to be more involved. And again, I think working with the realtors is really big, because there is a bill up in Georgia right now that's happening, and crossing the bridge and going to Savannah City Hall. Now, I did not drive to Atlanta or Athens to those meetings, but it was important. And what I noticed is the story that wasn't getting told at that hearing, there were no homeowners except for the neighborhood groups. They were just the neighborhood associations and the historic society, which in Savannah, just like New Orleans, the history is big. And I didn't really hear many voices. So fortunately, I waited till last to speak, and I told a story about a homeowner who retired on Tybee. I said, I want you to, this is this homeowner. These are not mega investors. These aren't venture capitalists. These are their second homes. They love Tybee. They want to live here. Their dream is to die on Tybee Island, Georgia. And now John Brannigan, who was counting down 3,000 days to his retirement from the Federal Reserve, he and his wife Judy had a condo. They'd visit every weekend. Then he got closer to retirement. They ended up moving there, and now 10 years later, he's our city councilman. So these are your neighbors, these vacationers, these tourists, or as some of our locals will say, if I hear the word tour on, it makes me go crazy. And it's humanizing both our guests and humanizing our owners, telling those stories, because a lot of times the guests and owners do not have a seat at that table. And I think we need to do a better job at convincing our guests, especially when your governor's major initiative is tourism, and reminding them that your major goal is for Georgians to not leave the state of Georgia on their vacation.
Right. Michelle, any last words? Encouraging people to get involved?
Oh, I would say one of the things that I wish I had done was created the alliance before there was a need for an alliance, and then it became very reactionary. Instead of, I heard at a session earlier today, I forget the title of, it was about thought leadership. And there was a woman up here from Portland who got together all the Airbnb hosts, and they are all buddy. And then they were prepared when city council came and said, we're gonna look at this regulation again. They were ready to take action, and they had already created relationships amongst themselves and built that trust. And it's hard to build the trust when everyone's in fight or flight mode, because they think they're gonna be shut down.
Good point. Any last questions? They haven't opened the door yet to kick us out. Go ahead, Amy.
Well, I actually went, and just also, since we are in the vacation rental business, don't forget to communicate your efforts to your homeowners. This is a great point. Some of the biggest open rates and some of the greatest hugs that I have at our owner gatherings every year our owners are thanking our company and me personally for being their seat at the table. They and for keeping them informed. Just taking a minute to maybe not even in your regular owner newsletter, but even doing a local news update of what's happening at City Council. The public safety is looking at a nuisance home ordinance, or water rates could be going up, and due to the carrying capacity study, they might want vacation rental water to be more expensive, and just because they don't know what's happening. So don't forget, it's not just about you being involved with the local environment. It's also letting your owners know what you're doing, which does create great loyalty and owner retention. And especially if maybe your competitors aren't doing as good of a job at that, they are really appreciative, and it is a selling point of what your company has to offer your clients.
That's so true, and they're a great army of advocates for you also. So we thank you for coming. Come up and get a flyer, and maybe it'll give you some ideas. Thank you.